Yeah. Abby, ready?
Call to order, please. Roll call.
Sure, Commissioner Cardenas, absent. I'm sorry, we're gonna start the meeting.
Hey, guys, we're going to start. Thanks.
Commissioner Cardenas is absent, Commissioner Cooley,
Present.
Commissioner Douglas,
Present.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Here.
and Chair Shelf is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And let's pledge allegiance, John.
Face the flag, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I get approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda. Second.
I'll say yea.
Aye.
Aye. Any blue folder items?
None?
None. Any public comments on non-agenda items? None. Consent calendar. We cannot approve C because I am recused, so 7C will go to next meeting when we do have a quorum. And can I get approval on 7A and B?
So, and apologies, just we'd ask for a motion to approve 7A and B and continue item 7C.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to continue C and a motion to approve A and B?
So move. I second.
All say yea?
Aye.
Yeah. Any excluded consent calendar items?
None?
First public hearing, 9A, zoning case 23070.
I'll give the presentation.
Oh, wow.
One second. Okay, this item before you is 23 Crest Road East, zoning case number 23-070. It's for a site plan review, conditional use permit and variance. The project is located in the center part of the city of Rolling Hills, off of Crest Road, in this location. This shows the vicinity map showing the subject property there. Residents within 1,000 feet, as shown on that radius, were notified of the public hearing. They were mailed public hearing notices. The notices were also sent in the published in the Daily Breeze. And a little bit of the background, this isn't the first time this project is being seen by the Planning Commission. And it's not the first time a project has gone before. Back in 2017, the City Council actually approved a project under zoning case number 902 for an 11,500 square foot residence with a basement of the same size, including other improvements. That project was granted an extension, but eventually was not built. A new project was submitted in 2021 under zoning case number 21-11 for an 8,460 square foot residence and same size basement. That project did go before the Planning Commission, but the property was sold. And so the new owner submitted a new project for site plan review and variance on June 2nd of last year. On December 11th of 2023, the Traffic Commission approved the new driveway apron and driveway for the proposed project. That project went before the Planning Commission earlier this year on January 16th and again on April 16th. Both times the Planning Commission considered the project, had some comments about the issues, and continued the public hearing. And here we are today in June looking at the revisions of the project. So some of the issues that were brought up at the April 16th Planning Commission meeting included the basement projection and also the exit or tunnel leading out from that basement. The height of the mound, at that point it was pretty much level with the street, and so the commission requested that it be lowered. And there were also some concerns about privacy for the applicant, the property owner, and also view blockage from a neighbor to the north on 20 Crest Road East. And so the applicant went back, they did some revisions to the project, they've updated the main house, tweaked that a little bit, and they moved the guest house a little bit, so it's outside of the canyon to the east. There's also been some civil work to the plans in regards to the grading, and the mound has been lowered about 5 feet, and we'll show some of those revisions. Some of the issues that still do that the planning commission should consider is the mound. It has been lowered 5 feet from the last time you've seen it back in April, but that is something that you can talk about because we did do a field trip this morning. There's still some view concerns from the neighbor across the street over at 20 Crest Road East. Those are the Huz. There was some discussion about the walkway or the tunnel that extends from the basement and it daylights out. And there's also the portion of the basement underneath the covered patio. That portion has been removed by the applicant, and so the basement now goes under the footprint of the residence, with exception to that walkway or tunnel that exits out from the basement, pretty much perpendicular to the building, and it daylights out. There's also been some concerns from the residents down below about drainage coming from the property. We have invited LA County, and our building official is here, as well as our grading and drainage, in case you have any questions after the presentation. So this shows the plan that was submitted, that went to the Planning Commission back on April 16th. This is what you looked at before. The applicant has since revised the plans, they tweaked it around, and I don't have a pointer here, but you can see the new plans here on June 18th is what you're considering. The building has been slightly tweaked. It's been pushed up north a couple feet and to the west. And so again, from the April 16th, you can see that it sort of slightly moved up towards the property line. If you look at the guest house here on the eastern side, you can see that it's tweaked. This is from April 16th. They've shifted that slightly to the north, and they tilted it a little bit to get that corner out of that canyon down below. The size of the ADU is slightly increased. And so they did try to address the Planning Commission's concerns by tweaking the residence somewhat. In terms of the grading, this is what you've seen back in January when the project was first proposed. They did some tweaks, and this is the plan that you reviewed back in April, showing the mound. There was some reduction in they pushed the building a little bit further away from that slope, and they do have the fill, the blue area there for the mound. The revisions made now shows less fill in that mound. They've lowered that down 5 feet, so that's why you have a lighter blue color, as opposed to the one that you saw back in April, where you have the darker blue colors, showing that it's you have more fill in that location, and also more cut where the house is located. So this is what you're looking at now, where that mound has been reduced 5 feet in height, and they've done other changes as well to the building. I should also note that they also reduced a portion of the swimming pool pad in this location. In terms of the landscaping, this is one of the issues that the Planning Commission discussed. There was a concern about what type of vegetation was planted on that mound. And as you can see from this plan, they are showing some trees on top of the mound. And there's 21 total throughout that area, but there are several trees that are proposed for the top of the mound. This is another plan showing the type of trees that they are proposing. Some of them located on the mound. The larger ones, which are the Quercus agrifolia, the coastal live oak, will be located on the corners. Those are these right here, and these over here. The ones in the center of the mound, they're showing some Linda Vista plants. This is one of the photos that we took, and they are a couple of varieties. This one just seemed to just be more of a large hedge and possibly can create like a hedge, a blockage. So it's probably something that we want to avoid on the mound. This shows the coast live oak and what it can be. It says that it grew up to 30 feet in height with a maximum width 30 feet. But it is a rather large tree, and if, I guess, planted correctly, you could see underneath it, underneath the canopy, and maintain that view. None of this will be planted on that mound. They're going to be located on the perimeter. The closest one is probably right there, closest to the street. And this is the third type of tree. This is the forest pansy, and that's shown with this character right over there. So there's a couple of the smaller ones. There's the smaller trees that are proposed in that mound area. This just shows the main residence floor plan. There's really not much to discuss in terms of changes. I did want to point out that the basement level right over here, this is a covered patio, which kind of projects out. If you look at the basement plan, that used to come out here, and they used to have some space there. They removed that, so that's there's no more basement space underneath that covered patio. They do still have that extension coming out, which is that exit way that leads out from the basement and daylights out. So that's something that the commission should consider. And this is just a diagram showing the site drainage and what they're proposing. There's a natural drainage course located along the western portion of the lot, which is part of the Klondike Canyon system. There's also a canyon on the east side. But they eventually do drain towards that Klondike Canyon system. The applicant is proposing these cisterns, there's 2 of them there, which will collect water that flows onto the impermeable surfaces. That water will be used for irrigation. For any overflow, there's an overflow device over here, or overflow pipe that leads down to the canyon towards I guess a dissipator or riprap closer to the canyon that takes care of any of overflow. But the intent really is to collect the water that flows onto the impermeable surfaces like your driveways and your rooftops, collect those in the cisterns, and then use those for irrigation. Again, we did notice this in the daily breeze, and notices were sent to residents within 1,000 feet. That happened on June 8th. There were several members that showed up at the field trip, and we did have residents also discuss or come to City Hall, asking about the plans. So we find that the project is categorically exempt under CEQA, Class 3, Section 15303. It's a single-family home in a single-family zone property. And our recommendation is that the Planning Commission open the public hearing and invite the public to comment, provide direction to staff and the applicant. We've also included the resolution of approval in case the Planning Commission wishes to approve the project. And that completes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No. One question on the site plan where you showed the basement extruding. There was a kind of a shaded area. Do you know why that was shaded?
So on the floor plan on the basement,
Yeah, see right there on the left-hand side of the drawing. It extends, is the dotted line, is that setbacks? Right there, in that drawing, on the left-hand side
Yeah.
there.
sorry, because we ran out of battery after this, but
What's that shaded area supposed to represent, do we know?
so my understanding, it looks like a tunnel area where you walk out and then it daylights out after that. So
Okay,
I mean,
we'll
the
let the applicant, they'll
Yeah.
probably explain that, so. Okay, anyone? All right. Anybody from the public, please come up and name and address, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, they're all here. So,
This one.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Frank Escher. I'm one of the principals of Escher Gunnewardena Architecture. We're based in Los Angeles. Also here is David Ramis, who is the project manager on this. I think we know most of the people here. This is, as John explained, the third time that we're here. The changes that were made, as John mentioned, was the mound was lowered. And the second change, which was a request by our client, was that we rotated the building ever so slightly to capture slightly better views from the master bedroom wing towards the west, towards sunset. That was the reason. And that has to do with, once everything is staked and we're looking at things, and she was talking about that. You've seen this image before. This is the view from the site. This is also information that you've seen before. This is a summary of the requests that were made to us that we addressed. The mound was lowered. The decks, as John already explained, and I'll talk about that in a second a little bit more with plans. We no longer have basements extending beyond the footprint of the house. And then we also have an image to explain how this exit works. This is also a drawing that you've seen before. Maybe for people who have not seen this before, the way the house is organized is that we have one topo line. It's 1293. Thank you. And this kind of determines the elevation of the building. It also determines the shape of the building, because this building really just follows the topography, with the one exception, which is here at the front, where the floor is the allowed 5 feet above the natural grade, and that creates this sort of prow, or the living space, the main space of the building. And then we have these several sort of courtyards that are landscaped inside the house. By rotating the building ever so slightly, that also allowed us to sort of better address the situation that was brought up. This particular structure was also pushed back a little bit, so they are no longer actually in line, but they sort of form a slightly different pair, with a more trapezoidal courtyard in between the two, which is what you can see right here. This, as a reminder, this is the previously approved project. So this is not our project. This is a project that was approved on this site. And the obstructions to the view of that previously approved project were worse than what we have, even for the mound. So I just want to make sure that that is very clear, that our project, even with the mound, has a much lower profile. And while I do understand, and we worked very hard to address the concerns about the view from the street, I just really want to stress that our project is doing more to preserve that than the previously approved project. This is the same plan that John showed earlier. This is sort of a schematic landscape plan. I say schematic because we will not have these sort of very crisp sort of divisions between the different types of landscaping. I think some of you were here in the first presentation when Terremoto, the landscape designers were here and explained the sort of thinking behind the selection of trees, of plants, and also plants that really are beneficial to the animal sort of population in the region. I will show a rendering in a second about the mound and also about the proposed landscaping on that. We are completely aware that we don't want to, and we should not sort of obstruct the view. However, there is sort of a fairly, as you know, it's a fairly large property, and within the area of the mound, we feel that there are places where we can sort of carefully and strategically plant a few trees. This is the exit that we were talking about, and your question earlier about what this was. The walls here have this is really a tunnel, and there's a cover. And at this point, the cover stops, and these walls just become retaining walls that slope down with the terrain. And you'll see a rendering of that in a second. So that's why they're shown slightly differently. This is the plan of the area above. This is this covered outdoor space next to the kitchen and next to our client's mother's sitting room. This is kind of the end of the garage, and this is the central landscape courtyard. So this is what this tunnel looks like. So what I was trying to explain earlier was that what you saw, the sort of firmer lines shows the walls up to here, then there is a roof, and then these walls basically just follow the terrain. Now, what we are not showing here is that there would be a fence. There would also probably be more landscaping, because we also, from the house, don't want to see necessarily this obstruction. But this is a very discreet way of getting in and out. We don't think that, I mean, it's not a second story, which is what the objection was. This is a view more or less from down here, looking up towards the house. This is a view from the street. This is the stable building. This is the beginning of our driveway that, as you remember, sort of curves and down to the house and circles back up to the stable. And this is sort of one idea of what this mound would look like. And there are multiple gardens and landscapes in rolling hills that look like that. The idea is really that it would be as natural looking as possible. We don't want this to sort of look like a man-made garden necessarily. It really should look like it's been there undisturbed. And so that's the idea behind this planting. This is a view from down here. The weeds have grown a little bit. And as you remember, the whole idea of how the house is placed is that we have no grading beneath the house. We're keeping the natural sort of topography there. This has to do a lot with being careful, respectful to the land, also wanting to disrupt existing drainage patterns as little as possible. Any sort of water that falls up above, John mentioned that, are captured and then retained in the system. And I should add that Dan Bolton, our civil engineer who you all know better than I do. I mean, though we know each other very well now at this point. But it's probably best that he explains that and addresses any questions that are raised about the water system. Again, this is the lower level, and we really only have a basement in this sort of central part, not in these wings. And this is the main level. Again, we arrive here. This is the parking. This is sort of an entry court. This is the main entrance. And the living space is organized around this triangular landscaped courtyard with the views out. Access to the master bedroom area is past another landscaped courtyard into a library, a study, another courtyard, landscape courtyard, the bedroom, and then the dressing areas and bathroom areas, and then this goes out to that to this little private garden here. Then again on the other side of the building, so we go past the kitchen, then there is the quarters for our client's mother, the sitting room, the bedroom, a handicap bathroom. This is all designed that somebody in a wheelchair can be moved around. Another, what do I do? Another landscape courtyard, and there's a room for the sort of caretaker of the mother. 2 bedrooms. There's a small pool area here. It's sort of tucked into the hill, and on the uphill side there's a series of laundry service areas. So there's a service courtyard where you hang your clothes, etc. This is the little video that we made, and I don't know if this is the previous. Is this the previous one or the? And are both in there? Okay, great. And so this is something that we had done to basically just show what the view is as you drive along the street, and so.
Yes. Are you on one of the videos? Or down here?
Great, thank you very much. So this is the neighbor's driveway. This is the stable building, and you saw down below the beginning of the house. This is the paddock for the horses. And so this is the driveway, and here you see the beginning of this mound that now is does not cover the roof. In the previous version, which we have here, this was a little bit higher, and it did cover the roof. Again, this has to do with privacy for our client from the street. We also don't want to necessarily sort of see the whole building from the street. And it was also originally sort of conceived of as a method to reduce the export of land, that we would sort of use this area here to put the land. Now, what I would like to show is the previous one, but I will need John's help. Thank you very much.
416?
Yes, please, yes. Great, thank you. So this, again, this is the neighbor's driveway. This is our stable building. And so you now see the driveway, and this is the mound in its previous iteration, and where at this point it was covering the roof of the house, so the house would have actually disappeared. You see, it never gets anywhere close to the horizon, and then the house would have reappeared. But we all agreed that we were lowering that, and so the lower version is what we now have. That's it, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions there are right now. I know that there will be questions about water things that maybe Dan can respond to, but if there are any questions about the plan or anything else, I'm happy to answer those.
I have one question about the tunnel, and looking at it from the western neighbor, what would their view of that be?
So not shown on the rendering and not shown here are the existing trees that we are keeping. We don't want to cut those down, because our view is also directly to the neighbor's property, and our client also does not want to look at that necessarily. So we will be trimming the trees maybe a little bit to not obstruct the view to the sky, but the trees will be high enough that from the house they try to sort of screen off the view to the neighbor, which means that the neighbor will equally have a somewhat obstructed view of the house, and this tunnel, for lack of a better word, which is lower, is not going to be visible. And if there is any questions, we can even sort of add planting there if there's any concerns about that. We feel that it is the simplest, least invasive way of doing that, and it allows us to add planting if necessary. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
I had a question on that. We brought it up today on the same tunnel going out. If it would be possible to, we looked at a project like this, I believe on Pine Tree a few years ago, on a very similar large house, large lot, large basement, and they took the entrance out, and I think actually to a sport court or tennis court, and the issue was just across the canyon looking, and you're looking straight into, so to speak, the door, and it looks like the second level. We all know it's a basement, but so they solved it by actually coming out, and they either did a T or an L, where they just jogged the path. They did have a retaining wall that would be in the back there, but they actually landscaped that, and it just made the tunnel much less visible. So I'm guessing when I say this, but if you go back, because I know the topography is probably a little bit different, but it was similar where they went back about halfway from that entrance. It was not the sloping hill that you have, it was more of a landscaped wall that they ended up doing. But not to rechange or do it, I was trying to figure out just a way to soften that entrance.
We are, if there is a request for a wall, I mean, we will consider that. I don't think that it will make things different or better, because what that means is that we will have another sort of built element sort of above the ground. We could very easily sort of have an angle in there. That would not be a problem. If there are concerns and we should try to address that, we can figure out a way to just angle that so that then there is no kind of straight view into that. That would be a very easy way to solving that, if that.
Okay, I think that would be, and then and to your question, Jane, about we discussed today, you're trying to meet paths out there that are around, and the one thing that would be beneficial is probably plant some plants so that the path which blocks the view of that from the neighbor's point of view. So we just add some landscaping on the opposite side of the path, just to shelter the path and the entrance.
Yeah,
I think you have trees there now.
Yeah, the natural, I don't know if I need to get up.
It'd probably be good, but go ahead.
The natural foliage is very dense there. We, to even expose the path, we would need to take out some foliage. So there's already a natural barrier between
Okay.
the path and even the entrance. And the entrance as is, you would need to have sort of an impossible vantage from the sea to see straight in. There's no vantage that on the land where you would see directly into the, through the basement to that door.
Is there, relative to the mound, and I was going over this today, we had a lot of residents over the weekend, we were walking by the site, and everybody would like to see the mound a tad lower. And so the street level, is it currently the 1330? Is that this, I know that's the mound height.
Street level is 1335.
1335, and currently, that top of the mound is 1330. And this is an interesting question, relative to your video. If you went down 3 feet, is there a way to modify that here, or is that has to be done off-site?
It takes a little bit. And I apologize, I was trying to get back to our presentation to show, and in particular the basement entrance, if that was still a topic, but I don't know how to navigate this. This is our project, but it's a different.
So there's, this is the one that we,
The one that we sent today, is that?
this is our, this
Second from the bottom. And it's the first tab on the upper left. There's a set of tabs on the very top.
oh, this?
This is it, thank you. So, again, this we can angle. I don't necessarily believe that adding a wall here will improve anything, but we can landscape this to make sure that this is really out of view.
If you go halfway up, this is what we've done the last part, you go halfway up the path, and you actually jog it so that you end up having a wall facing out a little bit, but it's really just in the back, so that you ended up landscaping it so it goes in like this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about, but it's not at the bottom, it's moving everything over, I'm guessing when I say this, 5-10 feet.
I think we're all on the same page. I think we'll somehow zigzag this. I think that's actually, a very simple thing to achieve.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Question is how we document this, but zig-zag. Okay. And then I did have landscaping questions on the actual trees that are going on the mound. Is that something for you?
It would be more for the landscape architect, but we will try to answer the questions, and maybe I'll need Ravi for this as well, because if there's landscaping questions that you may be able to answer better than I.
Okay.
But what was the?
Anything other architecturally, any other questions? So maybe we'll, I just wanted to ask specifically on the mound, the trees. like in the video, for example, you had trees that had the foliage at the top and then you actually see through it.
Yes.
Yet what John had suggested was a type of tree, and now we're getting into a specific tree that can go on the mound, and the amount of them. There currently is what, is that 7 trees?
Yes.
And then the smaller round are something else.
I am afraid I don't know what,
Yeah, I can take over from.
could, yes, that would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Please state your name and address for the record.
David Ramus, 821 North Alexandria Avenue, Los Angeles, California. As John had mentioned, there was 3 trees proposed on the site. There are the coastal live oaks, which are heavily present in the area, to be planted outside of the mound. On the mound is the Catalina ironwood, also a native plant, seen with a maximum width of 12 feet, and a maximum height of 20 feet. That would be these larger, let's see if we can. These circles with rectangles or squares in them. And then a smaller forest pansy with a max width of 12 feet and a max height of 12 feet, also heavily present in the Palos Verdes region. So while this plant does have, let's say it's conical in shape versus a canopy, it's the width of its obstruction is limited to 12 feet, and that's when it's a fully established tree in 30 years, 40 years maybe.
And the rest of the mound is planted with what? Any kind of bushes
Just
that
scrub, bushes not taller than 4 feet. So that's this in pink, the native meadow, which is all a mix of native grasses, which we have a sample images of.
But most of that's probably under 3 feet, right?
Yeah, most of it, yes. I think there are some maybe, some of the, like maybe the sagebrush maybe gets a little taller than 3 feet at points, but in general, it's just grasses, and if they're, kept between about 3 and 5 feet, if maybe 5 feet at the max.
And maybe if I can just add to that, so, we did not want to have a denuded sort of area of the landscape. We really wanted to, the map, we really wanted to have something that feels like it naturally is part of this landscape. And so, that is why we have the kind of meadow that we are proposing, and with a few sort of strategically and carefully placed trees. But we did not want to have something that is just only a meadow with nothing else. We don't think that would look right.
So that we don't, because the next step is for us to let the public speak, and then we'll discuss, and then there may be an opportunity to bring them back up. But I'm gonna tell you my suggestion and see if that's palatable to you. And this is based on a couple conversations over the weekend with a lot of residents as we walk up there. And so you had the benefit of that, and I must admit that we feel very entitled to the view, and it's not our, but you know what I mean, if we're just all used to it, because we've kind of grown up with it. So, and this is great specifics. So the first suggestion was, a lot of people wanted, there was the first, what I kind of pointed at today, where the cross member goes up to hold everything. It is roughly 4 feet, but I think a lot of people have suggested that top at 330 could come down 3 feet. And that was one suggestion. Two is they wanted 2 or 3 trees. My suggestion, after looking at this and how you put that, would be 5, but stick with that Catalina ironwood. The oaks are on the side, but the forest pansy, did I say that right? That was too bushy at the bottom, and that's what everybody was trying to avoid, not knowing what plants were what. So there are 3 things there, and I wanted to know what your opinion would be, is if the mound came down 3 feet, the trees would be the ironwood, relative to anything over 3 feet, and then all shrubs would be, no higher than 3 feet tall, which actually gets you back up to that current, 330 mark. So I think from a, approval standpoint, we're suggesting is 1327 at the top. And sorry to go in detail, but that's where I was kind of going right there. Is any of that palatable to you?
We want to figure out a way that we can work on this. There's no question about that. But if I understood you correctly, you're talking about further reducing the amount from what we've already reduced it.
Yes, last time we said roughly 6 feet. I think you've come down 5 feet, and then
Okay.
you redid it, reflagged it, thank you. And then as we were looking at that this morning and over the weekend.
Not the 3.
Correct.
Again, I really want this to be noted that you previously approved a project there that would have completely obstructed the view with a building.
It was a building and not a mound, you're correct.
And we are giving you much more view from anything that was approved previously. I just want this to be really understood. Having said that, we are very, of course, we want to make sure that there isn't, a great deal of hand-wringing about this project. We think you still will see, you will see the horizon. You will now see more of our building. And I am not sure that, if you want us to reduce the amount, we'll do that. Let me put it this way.
You're not wrong relative to, other than the last comment, you're right that we run the risk of you're seeing more of the building. I think on the slopes, particularly on the sides, the difference between your project and the last project's also is it's frankly wider, meaning where the house was in the center, the barns and whatnot, they didn't have them so much, and so it was different. So we've got different view corridors, which is important in between your structures, and we've kind of noticed that. So we all stood in one place today. That's not the only place. It's obviously on both sides too of that mound going in. And I agree that the mound, the benefit of it is it provides privacy, but also provides, you're not looking at the structure 100%. And it's a large, long structure. So I totally agree. And this is just my opinion, so I have 2 others here that we'll get to, and so they may differ. I was just asking if that would be reasonable on, and we'll discuss the trees and whatnot.
I mean, at that point, it's so we've reduced it 5, and then we reduce it another 3. it no longer is a landscape element. It no longer is, it's, it's just a, sort of an enclosed oval-shaped meadow. It no longer is this element that we would like to have something that provides some privacy for our client. That's very, very important to her. We feel we are not obstructing the view. The view will still be there because this whole thing is much lower. But if there are very sort of strong feelings about that,
I have a solution also. Please. So my name is Ravi Gurwardena. I'm the other partner in the firm. And my address is 815 Silver Lake Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. And so one solution would be, you can see the mound starts where that sort of fence-looking element is, and then extends quite far down. And so we could, and the viewpoint is from where the car and the truck is up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we could do is limit the planting on the upper portion of the mound. And so that would be keeping it to that view shed that you would like. And then the lower portion could have taller shrubs, which would provide privacy for our client. And that way everyone gets their desires fulfilled. And
I
so-
appreciate the idea, and you kind of know where we're going, and you're
Yeah.
right that it's tough to see the perspective. I also think because the driveway, you didn't slope to the driveway because the driveway isn't exactly where it will be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's deceiving. And
Yes.
I think, important comment, you just don't want it a flat meadow.
Yeah.
You wanted it more of a mound. And I know you'll do it right. You've got the right people, we've noticed, and so
Yeah.
thank you for that. But I was just trying to go on the gut feel of a little common sense when we walk by it, and a lot of us do all the time, and particularly drive by it. So we're just trying to get that one mound, because to earlier point, yes, you don't hurt the horizon, but the canyon views and the sides down there, and you can see actually whitewater from certain places, that's just as important.
Yeah.
It's just not that horizon Catalina view. You're kind of seeing down the canyons on both sides, which gives you different perspective.
Yes, we fully agree with that, but if we would be able to get back to the film, but I fear that exceeds my technical abilities. The mount now is lower than the house. So at this point, the house actually obstructs the view down into the canyon, not the mound. Because in the previous version, where the mound was higher, if you remember, when you drove past it, at one point, the house disappeared. And then it reappeared over here. That's no longer the case. We've lowered it, and now you will actually, from here to here, you will always see the roof.
The house.
At this point, the roof is reduced, the mount that does get a little bit higher, and I have reservations about sort of exposing the house even more. But lowering the mount will do absolutely nothing to open up views down to the canyon, because there's a building there.
Okay.
But we can definitely make amendments to the landscaping to sort of
Yeah.
allow for the greatest view shed possible from,
Okay. I don't know how to exactly document that,
Yeah.
but we'll try. Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Is there anybody else?
Why don't you talk about the water, because that's a
I'll see
very
if
big
there's
issue.
questions.
Yeah, yeah. Do you need any of the images?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Great.
I'm Dan Bolton, with Bolton Engineering, the project civil engineer on behalf of the applicant. And thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Mostly I'm here to answer any questions. I know John Signo sent over some questions asking about the the nature of the storage and the nature of the cisterns on site. What we've done is taken the same approach as we took with the Heinz project that was approved on this site, and the approach we took with the Dark Moon project, which I think, while it didn't get approved, I don't think that there was any real controversy about the drainage per se, in as much as we were doing the same thing that there was consensus about with the Heinz project, which is to store the change or the increased volume in the 25-year storm in cisterns and reuse it as landscaping, irrigation, reuse water, and then the excess being discharged to the canyons. And so we've kind of taken that same approach with this project, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that there might be on the engineer.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
And I understand the engineers from Department of Public Works are here as well, if there's any questions for your city engineer, so.
Yeah, can I just ask my question to Dan, because that hope reserve?
Yeah, come on up, Charlie, just
Sure,
to
sure.
give your name and address, and then I know you want him to address it, so I think we'll just do it the correct way here.
Charlie Rain, 4 Pinto, 2 Pinto, 64 Portuguese Bend Road. I've asked a number of times trying to figure out how big these cisterns are and how much water they're gonna hold, so I'd like to comment after Dan responds, and I need a minute to
Sure.
work numbers. Thank you.
You guys can both stay up there if you want.
No, I don't know, man.
We know each other by now.
Charlie and I go way back.
Yeah.
So the cisterns are 10 feet, the way that we have them designed, and there's a number of different products that are out there. But the ones that we have designed currently or conceptualized, they're 10-foot diameter, high-density polyethylene pipe. They're a couple different lengths. In one place we were able to get a length, I think one of them is there's two 36-inch pipes that are joined together by a connector. The other one's roughly 70 feet long. And they're different sizes because there's slightly different watersheds that are going to each. But the total, I'm doing this from memory, but it's roughly 11,500 cubic feet of storage that we've calculated that we need to provide.
Can you put that in gallons for me?
7.5 times, so 11,500 times 7.5 is 86,000 gallons.
Okay.
And you said you determined that based on, that need based on what?
Yeah, so we used the LA County Hydrology Manual methodology for 25-year storms. So we took the area that's being developed, the area that's tributary to the East Canyon and the West Canyon, and we said, okay, how much runoff do you get? What's the volume that you get in a 25-year storm from each of those two halves before the project's developed? And then what's the increase after the project is developed by virtue of the fact that there's impervious surface that's being added that isn't there now? And that change totals roughly 11,500 cubic feet. So we sized the cisterns to store that additional runoff.
Okay, so based on those numbers, so let's take the Heinz project, and I don't know the next people's name that did it. So those designs were both subject to our disagreement and objections based on the amount of water that was flowing down Little Klondike Canyon into Big Klondike, hitting the slide area. There's a huge difference now in that the water does not flow down. The water soaks in at the top of the landslide. It doesn't flow through. It's not a raging torrent. It's gone. It does not hit us. It doesn't pass Mockenbach's property. So it's a massive difference in that. We have had a storm this year. One of them was 12 inches. So 12 inches, your cisterns at 78,000 gallons are going to hold 4 inches of rain. You have 37,000 square feet, which sheds 23,000 gallons per inch of rain. And if you run those numbers, you're going to hold 4 inches of rain. We had a 12-inch storm. So I don't know if it's a 100-year. Pardon me?
February 1st to the 6th.
Okay. So whether it's a 25-year, which is going to be way less than that, or a 100-year, I can tell you that this year we had that. We had 27 inches of rain this year. We had similar amount last year, massive amounts of water. Little Klondike Canyon has not flowed in 2 years. Not a drop of water has gone down under our driveway where it's designed to go. All that water goes into the top of the landslide. So here we sit. Mockenbach's driveway has dropped a couple feet this year. We resurrected stone walkways, patios, things that our house had in spades prior to the landslide starting 40 years ago. We went back and we have had essentially 10 years of virtually no movement. We now have cracks that we are filling every day. Our rock walls are cracking like crazy. Portuguese Bend Road is dropping and being fixed monthly, and it's dropping a lot. I mean, some of us have small cars. We're getting close at times not to being able to make it out.
I can't argue with anything you said. I've driven down there and don't disagree with anything you said. However, the question is, imagine you're us.
Sure,
is
sure.
that, and we're concerned. You're a neighbor. We know you. You're a friend. Went to high school together. We know each other.
Elementary school.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And so the reality is what do we do from here? So I want some advice here on, I definitely think it's worth looking into it. You know, the homeowners have done everything possible to make everybody feel comfortable. I know common sense, I'm sitting up here and you've got entirely Crest all the way over to Crenshaw Boulevard, right? That's shedding water in a way all the way down there. So I don't know what this property specifically has to do with that. And I guess the question is from the county and everybody, and they may not be educated to it or up to date on what you're talking about. I don't know what we do to here other than note that it should be addressed.
Yeah, I realize that
Right.
you are not the deciding factor on this.
Yeah.
I am 100% for this project. I think it's beautiful. I think everything they've done is phenomenal. So I'm not against it. And quite honestly, if we have pipes transporting the water through the canyons, then the bigger the project is, the better, because the less water that goes into the soil, and we get a net gain from nature doing its job. So I'm all for it aesthetically and otherwise, provided that the water from it and from the Crest Road drain, which is not you guys, that's RHCA, is dealt with. So I'm all for them. But the water, we can't allow it. We simply can't. And I know that's not your decision. I know the county guys here, so I just want to bring it up with them so they understand.
Okay, I
And-
think,
yeah,
no,
it
it's
is-
worth voicing.
Yeah.
I want to give you that voice, so,
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah, and as you've heard through all the public hearings, you know, the owner, the direction that we've had throughout, with this owner in particular has been, we want to minimize impacts, we want to do things, and one thing that I didn't discuss earlier, although has been discussed previously, is the fact that they've, in addition to the stormwater, Charlie's also aware, as pretty much everybody here is that septic effluent is also a significant contributor, has been determined to be a significant contributor to the landslide. And this project is taking dramatic steps to impound, treat, and reuse septic effluent as well. So, you know, the project, this property as it sits now, of course, discharges water. The methodology, you know, we would be obligated, irrespective of what we did, to do something with the first 85/100ths of an inch of water just through low impact development requirements of Los Angeles County. We're doing well in excess of that. You could pick a criteria and we could look at it and see if we can meet it or if it's feasible to meet it, but there's always a bigger storm. And so, you know, we think that what we've done, we're being more responsible than anybody else that's tributary to Klondike Canyon that at least I'm aware of. Could we make them big? You know, there's always bigger tanks out there. I think that this is responsive to, I think it's responsive to the concerns of the community. I think it's responsive in as much as our client has directed us to come up with a responsible solution that addresses the concerns. She is highly aware of the concerns. If there's another criteria that somebody might put, like I said, there's always a bigger storm, there's always bigger tanks. And
I think we're making note of that, and I think we need to keep on track on kind of looking at the project itself.
Yep.
But I think Charlie brings up a good point, and I think we just gotta keep raising it, and I know staff hears it, and I don't know about next door, and where they are relative to the county, I know, and they're involved, and you said the county's here, so at least I hope they're listening, and
Can I just
We-
ask who the county guy is?
Mike,
Oh, hi.
And Anthony Wong.
Hi. Pleasure.
Okay. So, yeah, get cards.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
anything else? Frank?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else on this project? All right, close. Oh,
We're this in Ashes, just want to say we're named for Charlie, and we're thanking him for presenting our case as well, so we're just in agreement with him.
all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, he represents a lot of people.
Leah, are you coming up?
If I can.
Sure.
Why not?
Leah Mersch, 4 Centuring. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the comment that there's always a bigger storm, and that the storms we had the last 2 years were unprecedented. But then you also go years of drought where we have nothing for a long time. As a layperson, what difference would it make? It's being planned for right now, a 25-year storm. Is it unreasonable to ask if the project planned for a 50-year storm? To Mr. Bolton's point, there is always a bigger storm, but given what's going on, what's happening down below, is that an impractical request to even take a look at to see if that could be managed, or if that would be helpful or not? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Should we address some of these comments,
Please come back, yes, please, if you've got ideas on how to do this and take it a step forward, particularly for the neighbors, make them feel more comfortable, yes.
So, we've had a chance to have conversations with Mr. Rain, and very much appreciate the material that he sent us, and we and our client are fully aware of the issues. And as Dan said, and I just want to stress that again, that our client is absolutely her intention is very, very clearly to not make an existing situation worse. I mean, and if that means we should look at tanks for a 50-year storm, we will look at that. We feel it's the responsibility of any homeowner there to make sure that whatever they build anywhere does not impact negatively the community, because I think this is what responsible people do. But I think we do need to stress it is an existing situation. A lot of the problem actually happens further down, not on our property. And there are things that there are things we can do, but there are a lot of things that we really cannot do. And I think that's where, we are all, eager to hear what maybe the county will do. But whatever we can do on our end, we will try to do that. Just want to make sure that everyone understands that.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll close the public hearing and let's discuss this a little bit. A lot of things to bring up here.
Yeah, a lot of things.
Either one of you want to start?
I'll start with the landscaping and the mound. I was thinking the same thing that was brought up, that if the mound comes down, we're gonna look at the building and the structure. And so I know I would rather just see the beautiful landscaping that's natural than have that lowered and see the top of, you know, the roofs and everything, because it's gonna block the view regardless. So that's my opinion on that,
Okay. Don't disagree.
to start out with.
Yeah, I'd like to say that the second video was vastly improved from the last version. And even though you can see the roof line, I think it was just much less of a hump, you know, kind of an out of nowhere kind of a look. So I appreciate the fact that you took that time to help us visualize it. I think the concern that the residents and neighbors had were, if you're gonna backfill up with the landscape, what you've reduced with the mound. And I think that was a lot of what Greg's comments were, with the 4 feet of scrub, maybe looking at bringing it back up. Regardless, I mean, I think you're really taking the right step in reducing it, and the idea of using more foliage higher to create more privacy for the neighbors or the residents looking up, I think is a great idea. And I think keeping it minimal at the top and soft and is also a good idea. So I really appreciate your working on all these little fine details. The more we get on paper, the less you'll have to come back down the line. I would like to see the tunnel angled, frankly. I think it just looks too straight and too out of nowhere. So I think that would be, if that's something you can do without reinventing everything, I think it would be a more palatable look for everyone. And the resident herself, who doesn't want to look at the long outcropping as well, so. And then as far as the water, that is its own separate issue for sure. And I am certainly not an expert, but I am very impressed with the time and the expertise you're bringing to this project to use the state-of-the-art kind of water filtration and capturing. So again, you've really brought a lot of thoughtful design and expertise to your project. So I don't really have a solution on the
I
landscape.
agree with that.
And the exact trees and all that used, I think down the line, that could be where people start quabbling about how tall this tree was supposed to be, and now look at it. So I don't really know what the solution is. I don't really have a suggestion on how to define exactly.
Let's ask staff real quick a question on how we would document, if we need to document anything on the watershed, on water containment relative to other people in the city and the county that address it. Is that something, it's not under our purview, but is it worth even mentioning, other than discussing it like we have been?
Well, it's on the record right now, right?
Okay.
As part of the minutes of this meeting. If, as part of the approval, that's a finding, you know, that you want to make and kind of specify that you've considered that, you've considered the watershed, that's something you can do. That isn't a finding that's included in the resolution at present. So those are two options. You have the minutes, and then the other part would be including additional findings in the resolution regarding the watershed.
So we're suggesting that, the question
If
is,
if
it's necessary to mention, because other parts of the city, staff-wise, will definitely address this.
it is not necessary to mention as part of the approval itself. The municipal code does not include a finding as to the watershed. So these findings, as to the site plan review, right, conditional use permit, that's not including
Okay.
any findings of watershed.
There was a suggestion that we had from one of the residents down below, and they had had this idea of putting a pipeline from Crest, connecting from Crest all the way down to through the canyon, so the water doesn't go underground, but it gets converted out eventually out to the ocean. I reached out to the applicant and about connecting at a future time into that pipeline, if possible. And they seemed amenable to, being able to do that. So instead of the overflow going down the dissipator and then going into the canyon, what would happen is you'd have the overflow connecting directly into that pipe that would eventually go to the ocean and divert that from being, running down to the canyon and underground. I guess we had discussed that and thought we had put that in the condition, but it's not. But it is something that we could add. I think the applicants were okay with having a condition to that effect in there.
Okay, but I'll let you draft that.
Okay,
Okay.
we can draft that.
And just to get my comments out of the way, I think, let's talk about the path, the zigzag or the amended path, and maybe we leave it vague. In order to move this forward, I think we need to leave that a little bit vague, let them work with city staff on addressing that and finalizing it. On the mound, I think they did a good job of explaining and talking about, and I do think the mound height is okay. I will go with them in that. I would like to be specific on going from 7 to 5 trees and only allowing the Catalina ironwood, just because of the foliage underneath it, and then limit the shrubs on the top to 3 feet. Okay?
Yep.
So, either you want to take a stab, or I can, whatever you want to do.
Why don't we let you take a step?
Okay.
Go for it.
I'll make a motion to approve zoning case 23070 with the following modifications. I'll let you define, John and our city attorney, watershed, addressing the watershed.
I think we're going to, if we're going to address the watershed in a condition of approval, we would need to bring the item back after having drafted that, so that it is
I'm
more
gonna take that
specific.
out, and then, so that we can get past this. It does sound like it's in the record, it will be brought up. What about John's comment about if it ever hooks up to a pipeline?
There is a condition in there, it's on page 59, condition AB, and it talks about development shall drain in accordance with the approved grading and drainage plan, and it goes on. So we could add a sentence at the very end of that, just indicating that if there's a future pipeline that connects from Crest Road down through the canyon, that the applicant would be responsible for connecting the overflow pipe to that, that pipe that goes to the canyon, rather than having the water running directly to the natural canyon.
So can I leave that subject to your language in the motion? Can I leave that subject to his language in the motion?
That exact language, yes.
Okay. So again, zoning case 23070, make a motion subject to that language current, addressing the path from the basement, either angling or zigzagging that, agreeing to the height of the mound at 1330 with shrubs not to exceed 3 feet, and limiting the trees to Catalina ironwood, 5 Catalina ironwood trees.
I second. If that's
Roll call.
complete.
Okay? Commissioner Cooley,
Approve.
Commissioner Douglas,
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Approved.
motion passes.
I'm sweating. All right, 10A, zoning case 24018.
Okay, let me just give him a second.
Lost half our audience. All right, John.
Thank you. Zoning case number 24-018. This is a lot line adjustment for Storm Hill Lane. The project site is located right there. Storm Hill Lane, it's actually 4 properties that were subdivided back in 2000. This map here shows the properties there. Storm Hill Lane is located down at the bottom of that. It connects to Johns Canyon, which eventually connects to Crest Road West. We sent notices out to residents within 1,000 feet, including properties out in the LA County area over to the west of the city property. And a little bit of background, in 2000, there was a subdivision that created 4 lots from the existing 2 lots. 1 lot was developed, and there's now 3 vacant lots on the property, or on the project site. The access from the new, is from a new road, Storm Hill Lane, that was recently finished, and Johns Canyon Road, via Johns Canyon Road. The subdivision map was recorded in 2005. There were certain conditions in there, including improvements that needed to be done. The applicant decided to put bonds down in place just to guarantee that the improvements would be done. In 2019, the applicant received approval for a shortened road. So the road was originally longer. They had shortened that up. And they also did a lot line adjustment to adjust the lot lines according to that shortened road. 2024, the road was completed, and the new lot line adjustment submitted for further adjust the lot lines, and that's what's before you today. I should note that RHCA did review that right after we went to the field trip this morning. They're looking to take on the maintenance responsibilities for the road. There is an easement that's been recorded on the property for a 60-foot wide easement to RHCA. But again, RHCA is still considering taking that on for the responsibility. So they still have another meeting to go to discuss that. The proposed adjustment before you, again, it does adjust the lot lines. There's no additional lots being created with this lot line adjustment, and there's no development proposed at this time. In the future, when development does happen, that will come before the Planning Commission and eventually the City Council for consideration. In regards to this lot line adjustment, for parcel 1 shown there, they are going from a net lot area of 6.13 existing to a proposed net lot of 4.10. So there's a net change of 2.03 that they're losing from parcel 1. That's the vacant property at the southeast corner. Parcel 2, which is at the northwest corner, is going from an existing net of 33 acres roughly down to about 30.8 net acres. So they're losing about 2.5 acres. Parcel 3, which is on the northeast corner, is going from 15.8 acres, and they're actually increasing to 20.4, so they're gaining about 4.5 acres there. Parcel 4, which is the developed property, is increasing as well slightly. They're going from a net of 6.85 up to 7.11, so they're roughly gaining about 1/4 of an acre. The total gross is 67.7. The net is a little bit different from existing to propose, just because the net is based on the street access, street easements, and also the 10-foot around the property line. So that sort of shifts. That's why they're not exactly the same. And this shows the proposed lot line adjustments. Shown in the red is the new lot lines being proposed, and shown in the areas there where you, let me see. I don't have a pointer here, but shown in the areas where you have, let me see if I can use this right here. There you go. This right here is existing, and that's being removed, and that's being replaced with this red property line right over here. The reason being is because right now the parcel 3, which is the one back here, connects to the road through this narrow path. It's almost like a flag lot. And so in order to better address the access and as well as the grading, they're removing this lot line there, and they're proposing it to be right here in the red, which sort of widens that area out for parcel 3. it also takes away some of the land from parcel one. That's why parcel one is smaller. They're also adjusting this little portion over there and making it more straight. There's a lot line adjustment between parcel 4, which is developed, and parcel 2. Parcel 4 is becoming a little bit larger. They're getting about 20 feet. They're pushing that lot line out over there, making parcel 4 slightly larger. And then there's this other section here where between parcel 3 and parcel 2, where the current lot line kind of jogs in and goes that way. They're removing that, and they're proposing this in red, giving that land over to parcel 3. That's why parcel 3 is slightly larger. They're growing by about, again, 4.5 acres, getting that area there, and then gaining some land over here. So this again shows the lot sizes. I went back. Okay. This is a conceptual proposal. According to our code, they're required to have a minimum of 12,000 square feet for the pad area. So this shows conceptual pad locations, showing that it is possible to have a minimum of 12,000 square feet of pad area for each of the vacant lots. Parcel 4 again is developed, so that already has a pad size of about just over 2 acres. Parcel 1, which connects off of Johns Canyon Road and Storm Hill Lane, that will have a pad area of about 0.86 acres. Roughly, it's about 37,000 square feet. In order to do that, you need about 884 cubic yards of total grading. So 442 cubic yards of cut, 442 cubic yards of fill, which is balanced on site. Those numbers are down here below. In order to have that pad area, which is just under an acre. For pad number 2, they're showing that it's possible to have a pad area of just over 2 acres, about 2.25 acres, if you have about 32,000 cubic yards of grading done. So it's about 16,000 cubic yards of cut and 16,000 cubic yards of fill balanced on site. And then parcel number 3 has a pad size of about just over an acre. And that takes 29,000 cubic yards of grading in order of balanced grading in order to create that pad size. So they do meet the minimum requirements in terms of the minimum pad size. Once this lot line adjustment is approved, they do have enough area to build up a pad on each of those vacant properties. This also shows the access ways. So for parcel 1, the driveway can be located anywhere really on Storm Hill Lane in that location. The driveway for parcel 4 is already existing. For parcel 2, the access for the driveway way is off of the end of the cul-de-sac in that location. And for parcel number 3, you have that long driveway connecting to the end of the cul-de-sac that leads to the pad area. The reason for the lot line adjustment is really to widen this area out so you have better access. And when you actually do the grading for the pathway, that all that grading remains on on parcel 3, and you don't have to disturb future owner of parcel 1 or parcel 2. So as a result of this proposed lot line adjustment, what you end up with is you have a parcel 1, which becomes 5.37 gross acres, and that includes most of the roadways on Storm Hill Lane. Parcel 2 is 32.35 gross acres, and that is shown there in the shaded area. Parcel 3 is 21.92 gross acres, shown there. Again, getting rid of that existing lot line and the existing lot line that comes through here. And parcel number 4, which is developed, that's 8.06 acres gross. Our code has standards for lot design. The street frontage will not change. The connection points actually, and I didn't mention that though, but the connection points of these lot lines are in the same location. Those will not change. The only thing changing is this lot line here, starting from this point over here, It doesn't quite connect to the road, but it's hard to tell from the scale. But they're moving that lot line diagonally in that direction. And also, for between parcel 2 and parcel 4, the lot line adjustment starts in that point there. And so you're not changing the connection points for any of these parcels as they connect to the road. The minimum width of every lot shall be no less than 150 feet at any point, with certain exceptions. There is a cul-de-sac being proposed, and our code says that no more than 2 lots may take access from the end of that cul-de-sac, and that's what we have in the proposal. Lots 2 and 3 will have the access at the end of the cul-de-sac. The paved turning area for the cul-de-sac must have a minimum of 32-foot radius, and that's what has been developed. And all new roads require a minimum 60-foot right-of-way, and that's what they have. The paved portion is actually 30 feet wide. The properties are zoned RES2, which requires a lot size of 2 acres net minimum. The alignments of the streets shall be such as to provide street frontage for all the lots in the subdivision. And proposed lots will substantially remain the same as approved by the subdivision, except access for lot 3, which will be improved. Again, that area is going to be widened out, so it's instead of a flag lot, you have a wider area there in order to do the grading. Some of the other requirements for the lot line adjustments include that the planning commission may not impose any conditions of approval for lot line adjustments, except those that conform to the local zoning and building requirements. There is RHJ review that's still necessary for the lot line adjustment. The legal descriptions of the new lots will be reviewed by LA County Regional Planning Department, Land Development Subdivision Section. Those will be developed once it gets to the city and through the community association. Now, the applicant states that the main purpose of this lot line adjustment is to adjust the lot lines for the equestrian trail. There's that lot line between lot 1 and 3 that kind of goes off diagonally that follows the trail between the properties. And the lot line adjustment also gives better access and grading for lot number 3. Some of the discussion issues for the previous resolution, resolution number 894 that approved the subdivision, it does prevent further subdivision in there, and there's actually a condition, which I believe is condition 45, that reads, further division of this property, the parcel sizes below 5 acres will require standard improvements be completed as a condition of approval. And it goes on. What it doesn't mention is that 5 acres, that net or gross. And so we cleaned up that condition in the proposed resolution to say that 5 acres is gross. From the table that I shown earlier, the grosses are all more than 5 acres. It's just the gross for lot number 1. I'm sorry, the net acreage for lot number 1 is actually under 5 acres. It's 4.5 acres there. So we wanted to clarify the language there so that it's clear that that 5 acres discussed in the previous resolution is meant for gross acreage. There was a subdivision agreement recorded on the property, and that was to perform infrastructure improvements, which included putting in water lines, a sewer line, electrical connections, fire hydrants. That's all been done, so the status is completed. The road is in place, as we saw this morning in the field trip. We did notify neighbors within 1,000 feet, and we did have phone inquiries from residents in the Westfield neighborhood, the LA County unincorporated. They were just asking about the type of development being done, if there were any more lots being created, and what type of development is, can be built on those properties. We didn't receive any calls in opposition to the project. They were just general inquiries on what was going on. In terms of the environmental review, we find that the project is categorically exempt under section 15305 for minor alterations in land use limitations, class 5. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
On the easements, particularly for the equestrian trails, that's all under association, correct?
Correct.
And they're already gonna do that, so any easements between the properties and or for the horse trails, it is again them.
Yeah, that's, the horse trails will be, they're supposed to be maintained by RHCA. The roadway is supposed to be maintained by RHCA also. There is an easement agreement that has been recorded on the property for that, to address that. Again, they were there this morning to discuss, formally accepting the responsibility for the maintenance of the road.
Okay, and then the second to the last one where you said no further subdivision, but then it went into the 5 acres, is that because you would take one of the 4 parcels and actually make it, or change the lot lines in the future? But you wouldn't subdivide any of this any more than the 4 parcels?
Yeah, I mean, it was done back in 2000, so my understanding is they didn't want any further subdivision on the property. So the minimum is actually 2 acres, they made it 5. And again, I think the intention really was to prevent any further subdivision of the properties. That being said, the largest one is about 30 acres. The second largest is 20 acres. It is possible to further subdivide that. However, there are some obstacles there because of, you got steep slopes, there's access issues. So there are barriers there to prevent further subdivision. But my understanding is that the reason why that condition was in there is to really, prevent any further subdivision of these
It
properties.
seems to conflict. It says prevent any subdivisions, and then right below it, it says that you could consider it, what you just said. So it didn't read right. I'm not
Yeah.
understanding it.
According to our code, you could further subdivide the properties as long as the minimum is minimum is 2 acres.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone from the public, any comments? Name and address, please.
Jay Aluwalia with Storm Properties, 23223 Normandy Avenue in Torrance. We are the applicant on this project, so thank you for your time, and thank you, John, for the presentation. I know we walked the site this morning, and so there's no further subdivision. It's 4 lots, it's still 4 lots. And if anybody, the condition is recorded not to be subdivided, but like John said, if anybody ever tries to do anything, they will have to come back to you, and the condition is recorded on the parcel itself. So I don't think anybody will go in that direction. And the main purpose of the lot line, like John said, was mainly, like we looked at this morning, was mainly to prevent the issues between the 2 lots in the future when that private driveway is going to be created. It's going to involve grading, and so we're just trying to expand the area to prevent any issues in the future. And that makes the horse trail a lot easier, because right now it's on a very steep portion where horse trail may not be viable. So those are the 2 big reasons to move it. So other than that, if you have any other questions from the applicant side, I'm here to answer anything else.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What do you guys think?
It's pretty straightforward. I don't have any issues, especially with, better access to the trails and things like that. So I'm cool.
I saw this coming. They tried to
Yeah.
do it, yeah.
I agree. I think it makes sense, especially giving more property to the when the driveway is created, I can see the neighbor being glad there's a little more of a buffer for that long driveway that they have to make, so I
Good.
agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Either one of you want to?
Let's see. Oh,
24018.
2410.
Yeah, here, let's go.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure.
That's right, yeah.
I
Okay.
move to approve zoning case 24-018 as is.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cooley?
Approve?
Commissioner Douglas?
Approve?
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, zoning case 24016.
Okay, zoning case number 24016 is a site plan review to construct a new stable non-exempt grading, retaining walls to exceed 3 feet, maximum 5 feet height, and related improvements. There's also a conditional use permit to convert an existing recreational sports court into an equestrian riding arena and for stables greater than 200 square feet. And there's also variances for construction of a stable in the front yard, corral in the front and side yard setbacks, import of dirt, and to exceed the maximum 40% disturbed area for a property located at 1 Morgan Lane, and finding the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Our recommendation is to open the public hearing, take public testimony, close the public hearing, discuss the project, and provide direction to staff and the applicant. While Stephanie prepares the presentation here, I'll pass it over to her. This is an improvement to the property. It's really an equestrian use, and they're looking to remove a recreational tennis court from there, replace that really with this equestrian use. They're also looking to maintain the existing corral and run-in sheds at the very front of the property, the south portion of the property. It was approved on a temporary basis while they submitted their application for this stable project.
I have to go download it. I'm sorry. Apologies.
John, quick question. When we have horse facilities on 2 areas of a property, I've never seen that before, and not that I have a problem with it, regardless of being in the front yard, side yard setbacks here or there, but when the operations are separated, that's not,
That's a good point. I was
not a
curious.
concern, not a, I just haven't seen it before. I think on this property, it seems to make sense, but,
Yeah, I mean, I can think of maybe 2 properties. One being the one over in Storm Hill Lane, 4 Storm Hill Lane. That's the Kurtzik's property. They have a rather large equestrian use on there. It covers, I would say, a lot of the front half of the property. So, and they also have two stables also on there.
This one is on either side of the house, the residence. So I was kind of
Yeah.
wondering myself,
yeah.
the access for the horses to go from one side to the other. I didn't really
Yeah.
pay attention this morning on.
The other property I can think of is over at 1 Southfield. That's the one at the corner of Southfield and Crest Road East.
Yeah.
It's currently on the market right now being sold. But the corral area is along Crest Road where you see the horses. But the stable is actually behind the house on the Southfield side.
I drive by that every day,
Yeah.
and I should have noticed that.
Yeah,
You're right.
So,
I ride with those horses, so,
Yeah.
yeah. But this one's just a little different to me, because it's on,
Yeah, because how
on
do the
either side of
horses
the
in the front
house.
there get to the
Yeah.
rear?
Right, yeah, that is.
so I was curious how, if there was, I didn't really think to ask the question on access path.
and I think the owners had intended that the stable used to be on the northern part of the house where the tennis court is. I guess they're not really into tennis, so they wanted to remove that, put the stable over there. The existing corral that you saw this morning with the running sheds, that was there for a temporary basis, and that's why we approved that. It was meant to go away when the stable was built, but then they decided they kind of liked the idea of having that stable in the front area, and so they'd like to get both of those approved.
See how that
All right,
unfolds.
Steph.
Right. Sorry about that. It's 1/7 or 1/6? Okay. All right, good evening. Sorry about that. I thought I downloaded it, but I guess I didn't. Here to present 1 Morgan Lane. And this is for site plan review, conditional use permit, and variance. The subject property is located on the west portion of the city. It's accessible from Crest Road West, and then you go up Johns Canyon Road, follow that Johns Canyon Road, and it leads you over to 1 Morgan Lane. All neighbors within a 1,000-foot radius were notified of the field trip, and public hearing notices were sent by mail out on June 8th. A little bit of the project background. The zoning for this property is RAS2. The net lot area is 1.89 acres, 82,741 square feet. The existing residence was constructed back in 1987. The lot is currently developed with main residence, 4,277 square foot main residence, attached garage, which is 525 square feet, existing swimming pool, pool equipment area. It does have, we did approve 2 run-in sheds, so I hope there's no, I want to clear this up, that they're requesting a site plan review for additional 2 more run-in sheds. So there's 2 approved run-in sheds, and they're requesting a total of 4 run-in sheds for the property. There is a 7,030 square foot recreational sports court, detached trellis, a water feature. There's also a shed, and then there's the service area. So here's a summary of the approvals that are needed. There's a site plan review for a new 4,038 square foot 2-story stable, 2 120 square foot run-in sheds. There'll be one that's going to be located in the front where the 2 existing run-in sheds are in the existing corral. And then there's another run-in shed that will be located at the northwest portion of the property. And non-exempt grading, retaining walls that exceed 3 feet maximum height with 3 feet maximum height, a maximum of 5 feet height. Okay, and then also additional for conditional use permits. So the applicant is also requesting conditional use permits are required for a stable that's greater than 200 square feet. Stable height is 24 feet 9 inches. The total area of the stable is 4,038 square feet with a hayloft and a tack room. The first floor is 2,077 square feet, and the upper floor is 1,721 square feet. The corral is greater, the existing corral is greater than 550 square feet. The existing corral is 8,800 square feet. Also, the project is to convert an existing recreational sports court into an equestrian riding area. The total area for the riding ring would be 5,597 square feet. Additional, there's also variance being requested. The variance is for the construction of the stable in the front yard, the stable and the riding ring to encroach in the side setback. That's actually been changed because there was an error on the plans. The width of the existing recreational court is only 60 square feet. I mean, 60 feet wide. So on the plans, if you read it, it says 62 feet, but it's actually 60 feet. Also, variances for the corral to encroach in the front and side yard, and then the import of dirt, and to exceed the 40% maximum disturbed area. Here's a little picture of the existing corral. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit for the corral to exceed the 550 square feet. Back in March of 2023, staff approved the corral to provide shelter and outdoor space for the horses, while the applicants were applying, for the discretionary approval. So this is part of the approval process now, is to, permanently have the existing corral. This is the existing coverage, disturbance, and grading. Everything is within the development standards, with the exception of the disturbed area. The existing disturbed area right now is 39,627 square feet, and which is 47.8%. So it already exceeds the disturbed area. They're going to exceed by adding 1,824 square feet, which is 2.2%, which brings the total disturbed area to 42,377 square feet, for a total of 50%. So there's a variance to request for the 10% exceedance of, the 40%. This is the site plan. I just wanted to point out here that the tennis court is actually, 60 feet. It's hard to see. My apologies, that's hard to see. But I know the plans state that it is 62 feet. So the existing sports court does not, encroach into the side setback. The total grading for this project is 460 cubic yards of dirt, 194 cubic yards of cut, 230 cubic yards of fill, and 36 cubic yards of fill to be imported. So that's part of the variance request for the import of 36 cubic yards of fill. The main cut Okay, so the main cut for the grading is that upper portion. It would be actually for the for the west corner, there's the cut, the green. The green is actually the cut. They're gonna be cutting for the north portion of the stable. And then there's a cut at the top part right there. That's gonna be where that parking area is, not the parking area, it's like a access area to the stable. The red is actually the fill. So the fill section, there's also the driveway. That's a new access driveway that accesses the second story to the stable, to the second story stable. There's also a new run-in shed at the north west corner of the property. And that area is also proposing to be filled for the run-in shed. And the run-in shed, that area is located if you take the bridle trail that's located on the north portion of the property, that's how you would access that area where the run-in shed is. The fourth run-in shed number 4. So here is a section of the grading. And the bottom of the stable, they're gonna cut in about 5 feet and 8 inches. That's for the area, that's the area of cut. It goes all along to where the steps are. So they're gonna be cutting 5 feet 8 inches. And there are also this pathway right here. This pathway, that pathway area, this is the retaining walls that are located, that go along the DG pathway that leads the stable access that leads to the secondary floor of the barn. The new DG driveway is 10 feet wide by 62 feet long, and it leads to an adjacent 936 square foot DG unloading area that leads to the barn doors that lead to the hay storage area. The top wall that leads to the driveway, it's 4 feet high with an average of 2.5 feet. And the bottom driveway wall has a maximum height of 4.5 feet. And it doesn't have an average of 2.5 feet, so that's part of the variance request. The project proposes to convert 7,000, the recreational sports court, which is 7,030 square feet, into a riding ring. The majority of the west portion of the sports court will be converted into the riding ring with a 3-rail fence. So the bottom half, that's the riding ring, that's the existing sports court, and that's the bottom of it, it will be converted into the riding ring. And as you can see that the riding ring it's accessible from the bridle trail on the north side of the property. And the riding arena has an emergency path of travel that leads to the first floor of the stable. And the riding arena is, like I said, it's accessible from the bridle trail. And the applicant did get permission from the RHCA to use that bridle trail to access the stable. So the east side of the sports court, the top half of it, which is remaining 1,433 square feet, will be converted into the full floor for the stable is 4,038 square feet. And the top half, this is the bottom half of the bottom floor right here. I might have messed it up a little bit. The first floor of the stable has a foiling stall, storage room, cross-tie room, washroom, 5 stalls with outdoor stalls. And there's the aisle that provides the emergency access to the pathway, emergency access. The second floor, this is the second floor of the stable, is 1,721 square feet, and it features a hay storage area with hay chutes for the hay chutes that go to the first floor. There's a 563 square foot tack room, a kitchenette, and a bathroom. The hay storage is accessible from the new DG stable access path from Morgan Lane. And Okay, and here is the elevations of the stable. The top picture is the east elevation, so this is what you would see from Morgan Lane. It's got the tack room on the left side, and then the barn doors that lead over to the storage. So that's the top level from, that you would see from Morgan Lane. The bottom is the west elevation. You can see this access to the stairs. There's no windows or access or anything on the outside of the second floor. And then on the bottom is, you can see there's the turnouts. The picture on the bottom, I believe that is that's the east elevation. And then also there's the run and shed elevations as well, too. Here's a stable comparison of some of the stables that are in the area. One Morgan Lane, total square footage of One Morgan Lane is 4,038 square feet. And I think on the next slide, it will show that One Morgan Lane is 4,038 square feet. The average is about 1,825 square feet, and the largest stable that we found so far was 3,691 square feet. So this is going to be one of the largest stables in the city. And then the stable access, once again, the first floor of the stable is accessible from the bridle trail located on the north portion of the parcel, and the RHCA did approve the stable access. The second floor of the stable is accessible from the new decomposed granite driveway, accessible from Morgan Lane. So, community communication, Daily Breeze notices went out on June 8th, and then the notices were all sent to the residents within a 1,000-foot radius on the same day as well. We did have a few project concerns. We did receive a letter on 6/10 from Mr. Gray. He's a neighbor across the street at 2 Morgan Lane. He expressed his concerns, and the letter is actually included in the packets. He expressed his concerns about the driveway that was located, the new DG driveway is right across from his main driveway. He also mentioned something about the demolition and mitigation plans that will help offset the problems of the neighbors, so we will address that. And then this morning at the field trip meeting, Mr. Gary Hansen from 6 Chestnut Lane, he received a notice and he just wanted to see if the project had any impacts on his property. He was there shortly at the meeting, and then he ended up leaving. And he didn't have any concerns regarding the project. This project is categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA, Section 15303, Class 3, new construction of a single-family residence and accessory structures. So our recommendation is to open the public hearing, take public testimony, provide direction to staff and the applicant, and there is a resolution if the Planning Commission decides to approve the project. One of the areas of concern that came up was the parking area. Let me go back to the slide right here. Our code states that there's not supposed to be a parking area but according to the applicant, that is not a parking space. He just says that so that way when the delivery trucks come in for the hay, that they can come in and they're able to turn around. So that was something that I just wanted to bring to the Planning Commission's attention. And it would be that area on the left-hand side right here, the corner, which appears to pretty much looks like a parking space, but according to the applicant, it's for that way then the vehicles could turn around. There's not going to be cars that are going to be parking there. That's just mainly for delivery. So, and that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions.
I have one question on back to the comparison of stables. I wanted to see which one, the 3,600, was that One Pine Tree?
It is 77 Press Road East.
Okay, I guess what I'm looking at is that one story or is it a 2-story?
I
One pine tree there, 2,900, so the farthest one down.
Okay.
Is that two-story?
It
Pine
doesn't
tree is
say-
one story.
One
Yeah,
story.
It doesn't say
More
for
spread out.
77 Crest Road East. Our table's a little bit kind of outdated, so one of the things we want to do is kind of update them to kind of know of all the stable sizes and,
Yeah, that's fine, I was just trying to get an idea of if it's one story and more spread out versus this one that's two-story, that's all.
We're saying
I could
barn-
find that out, look into that.
Barn versus stable. I get, you know, I'm used to the barn word.
Oh, barn,
So,
yeah, sorry.
I had a question on the height limit. 24.9, was that correct?
That's correct.
And so, do we have height limits for, it seems like barns, we have different rules. And I'm not familiar with exactly what those rules are.
I thought it was 24, but I could be wrong, so that's something that I would have to, and it's an association that, regulates the height, but I think there was one here that was 24.9.
Yeah, the high was 32.
Yeah, there was one that was 30.
Yeah.
Well, the second story hayloft has to be just a 7-foot plate height, right? And this
And
one,
Yes, that's what this is.
It
this
is.
one is 7-foot plate.
It has a 7-foot plate
My other
height.
question, I guess, was I've not seen hay stored next to tack room.
Mhm.
Is that something that is acceptable? Just in terms of fire codes and all that, and when you're actually storing hay?
Because if there's these barn rules, I just don't know of any
Yeah.
barn rules.
I didn't see anything in the code for any
Any
hay
sprinklers
storage,
at all,
but
or-
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in their code that talks about that. It does talk about what you can have at the loft area, one being the tack room, you can have a tack room in the loft area. You could also have hay storage.
Right, well, it's technically a hayloft, so it's, but you can have a tack room up there, right?
Right.
But,
And we've
Right.
had other projects approved where they had the hay storage or a hay loft, but it was open to the bottom.
right,
So this is a little bit different because it's got the chutes and it's not a loft, it's just like a hay storage area. But we have had projects where there was a hay loft and then there was the
yeah, I
tack
guess
room.
I'm just thinking fire hazard.
Yeah,
And what will be the protection from that end? Like, are they putting sprinklers in, or is there something that should the hay?
I would think from
Catch on
building and
fire.
safety, yeah, because they could have plumbing in the tack room, so they could have a bathroom up there. So, that would be reviewed in building and safety stage,
And that's their purview anyway, we're just,
yeah.
okay.
Those have washrooms, so they'll have water,
can-
obviously,
yeah.
too.
They
Take
have,
a bowl
they,
and
ha-
throw it on the hay.
they can have bathrooms and kitchenettes.
And this is a larger sized, stable also, so anything over 1,000 square feet requires fire department approval.
Right, okay. All right.
What about the issue of multiple structures? So obviously, when we allow certain types of sheds and a guest house, et cetera, but when you have a barn and then you have the, I'm sorry, what did they call them?
The run-in stables.
The run-ins.
Run-in
And we
sheds,
had-
the
and
run-in
how many
sheds.
total did we have, including the shoe area?
It'll be 4.
Regardless of the size of the lot or anything like that, none of it does or doesn't fit. I've never seen this many structures. And then you get into the, we'll discuss it, but then the coverage, it is exceeding, so.
Just a disturbance, but they're okay on all the other, the lot coverage and, yeah, it's just mainly the disturbance that they're exceeding.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone from the public like to talk?
On the projects, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Sure, come on up. Name and address, please.
David McCloy, 26553 Westvale, Palace First Peninsula. So we designed the barn. You mentioned earlier about the horse areas being in different places. So that's really just a paddock. Those horses there don't do anything. One of them came from Germany with a bad knee, and rather than put it down, she wanted to keep it. So we found an area for it to graze. It goes there. The reason we put the running sheds is to give them shelter when it rained, because it rained a lot last year. So it's really just for that. Those horses will never go to the arena. There's no reason for them to go there. It's really just for them to keep them, because she's a horse lover, she loves her pets, and she just wants to take care of them in her own backyard rather than send them somewhere to Murrieta or something. So that's why they're there. The reason why it's such a large barn is we want to utilise the space at the top to do all the storage, because it makes sense and that is not a parking area, all that is an access area to be able to bring a truck in, to bring the hay, park it in there, and then it'll go away. So that probably will only happen, I would think, once a month, or maybe once every 2 months, because of the amount of hay they eat. They eat about 10 bales a month each, so there's enough area to store enough hay there for a month for the horses that'll be there. The different shapes of the barns is because she wants folding stalls as well. So she's going to have a couple of, she wants to have babies. She's a horse fanatic. So she wants places where she can have the babies be foaled. And that's really it, I think. We store the hay at the top. We came up with this idea of doing the chutes so it's easy to send the hay down into the stalls to feed the horses, rather than carrying the bales up and messing it around everywhere. Now the running shed at the bottom that we were talking about, that you said, because there seems to be a lot, that running shed will be mainly used for shoeing horses. So when the shoer comes in, he'll come down the trail, pull into that area there. Again, that's sheltered we want so that they don't get wet. And he'll shoe them, bring the horse down, and then leave.
That's
That'll be-
typical rather than doing it into the barn?
Yes, because they want to be close to the horse, because they've got to bend the shoe and do all that stuff. And they usually like to have their truck nearby. So the truck will come down to the bottom, the horse will be walked down, they'll do the shoes. That happens every 6 weeks. I think I've covered most of it.
Thank you.
Any other
No,
horse
I'm
people?
just, on the occasion that you need to move one horse from the one side of the property to the other, is there a pathway, or would they have to go up the street
Yeah,
and then
do you mean
down?
from the runnings that are there now?
Right,
Well, you see the trail to the right-hand side?
right.
That trail goes directly to the other trail. And we can walk through. So we just utilise the trails. But those shelters were predominantly put there because of the rain that was coming, and she was very cautious. She wants to make sure that
Right.
they've got no rain, even though in Europe they get wet.
Mhm.
There they are.
And we've had a lot of compliments, actually. I've had 4 people contact me and ask me
Mhm.
if they could have them done because they like them so much.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm all about it. I think it's great.
Thank
I
you.
love the fact that you're taking the sports court and turning it into my favorite activity, which
Yeah.
is riding, so
Yeah.
it's great. It's
Yeah,
very,
that's a plus for sure.
All right, anything more?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right, close the public hearing. I think I've heard a lot of comments.
I'm good. I had, growing up, we had the hay storage, and I could shoot the hay down. It was perfect. It worked great. I'm glad they're still doing
yeah,
it.
no, that's a practical way to do it with the two-story,
Yeah.
the access, right. I was just thinking more of fire hazard. I'm just curious if anyone had done it before. But we have sprinklers in our barns, so I don't know.
So if they make them, they'll make them, that's
Right.
not
Right, I
under
would
us.
imagine.
Okay, yeah. And the layout, the whole thing, that all makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Okay, good. Would
So-
anybody like to
Take a
take
stab.
another step?
Let me see if I can get the right number. Number 24-016, make a motion to approve the plan as written.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cooley,
Approve?
Commissioner Douglas,
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, zoning case 24017.
Stephanie gets prepared, let me just read out the title here.
Okay.
The zoning case number 24017 is for a conditional use permit for a detached pergola that exceeds 200 square feet. And it's also for variances for a new swimming pool and pergola to encroach into the front yard and pool equipment to encroach into the side yard setback located at 9 Outrider Road. And finding the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I was just looking at the numbers. I just wanted to make sure that the zoning case numbers were correct, so my apologies. Okay, so this is for a property that's located at 9 Outrider Road. The property is zoned RAS1, and the subject property is located over on the, more of the east, kind of like southeast section of the city. Once again, all neighbors within 1,000 square foot, within a 1,000-foot radius were all notified of the field trip, and public hearing notices were mailed out on June 8th. A little bit of background for this project. It is zoned RAS1, and it's actually, the net lot area is 30,313 square feet, 6.69 acres, so it's a relatively small lot over in the RAS1 zone because most lots are supposed to be at least a minimum of 1 acre. The building pad area is 10,200 square feet, and which is a lot smaller than what is required in the city. The city requires minimum building pad areas to be at least minimum 12,000 square feet. There is an existing 2,952 square foot family residence that was built in 1953, a 393 square foot attached garage, 224 square foot attached covered porches, and a 330 square foot detached as-built pergola. It's unpermitted, and it's become part of this project. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the pergola. The application is for variances for 450 square foot swimming pool and pergola to encroach into the front yard and side yard setbacks. Also for a 30 square foot pool equipment to encroach into the side setback. And then a conditional use permit for a 330 square foot detached pergola that exceeds 200 square feet. And this is a section of the code that discusses, so it is a legal non-conforming lot. It does have reduced setbacks. The reduced setbacks are for the house itself. It encroaches into the front, into the side setback. The front setback is 30 feet for this property, and then the side setback for the house itself is 10 feet. But for accessory structures, the reduced setback only applies to single-family dwelling units and not accessory structures. So it's the 20-foot required setback for the accessory structures. Let's see. It meets it doesn't exceed any of the development standards. It's 16, structural coverage is 16%, 20% maximum. Flat work percentage is 18. Total lot coverage is 34.86, so it's below the 35%. The building pad coverage, it's at 27.28%. There is some grading for the pool. It's 85 cubic yards, which is exempt, and it'll be exported. There's also the future stable and future corral area. So here is the site plan. The front, you can see the 30-foot roadway easement. Then there's a 30-foot setback. The pool area, the pool actually encroaches into the front yard. So that's one of the variances, because the pool and the pergola encroach into the front yard. Now, originally, the project, when the applicant submitted the plans, he had the pool was out in the 20-foot setback. But after they staked and surveyed the property, they decided that the pool went out too far, so they wanted to move the pool 10 feet into the 20-foot setback. So originally it was out of the setback because it was at 20 feet, but then they decided to move it in 10 feet. So it encroaches, now the pool encroaches into the side yard setback by 10 feet. And it kind of lines up with the house. because the house encroaches into the side setback and the pergola, so everything is kind of lined up. If it was pushed out 10 feet more, it just kind of, it really doesn't line up. And then there's also a slope north of the pool. So by moving it over, and I think you guys saw that this morning, it was like there's a partial slope. It's just a better place, and that's what the applicant is requesting. If you guys could approve it, the pool to encroach into the 10-foot setback. The pergola encroaches about 15 feet into the setback. It encroaches into the side setback and encroaches in the front yard. It's the orientation of the house. It's actually like the front yard is actually the backyard, and that's very familiar over there on Outrider. So kind of a aerial photograph of the subject property. And here's a better, you can kind of see like from Outrider Road at the bottom, you turn up and then it's a long slope driveway. So it's sloped on the front, Outrider, there's the 30-foot roadway easement, and then there's the 30-foot roadway easement back on Eastfield too. So there's 2 roadway easements, and then it slopes up, and then towards in the back on Eastfield, it slopes down. So once again, the net lot area is 30,313 square feet, which is relatively really small compared to all of the other lots in the city. The building pad size is also below, it's 10,200 square feet, and the minimum lot size is supposed to be 12,000 square feet. It's a steep slope. It's got, 2 roadway easements. So that's why the applicant is requesting a variances. This kind of gives you a better idea of where, the pool, the location. It's already developed. It's already flat. So, and I mean, it makes sense to put that pool in that location. And on this aerial photograph right here, you could see the neighbor, both neighbors on both sides have their pools in the front yard. This is the existing pergola. We went out to a site visit to view the pool, and then we had noticed that there was the pergola, it was unpermitted, so we decided to add this to the project. Normally it would be approved at staff level, because it does exceed 200 square feet, it requires a conditional use permit. So the dimensions are 18 by 18, and it's about 9.5 feet in height. And this is just the design concept of the pool. The June 18th, the project was noticed, and then the public hearing notices were sent out. Some of the concerns, we did receive an email from the resident at 42 Eastfield Drive. He actually is above the property. He was, he expressed his concerns about, the views, the pergola blocking his views, but the actual pergola is out of the view. The pergola is further to the right, so it really didn't have any impacts on his views. Once he confirmed that, the views weren't impacted, there was no issues. Also, I believe we had a resident this morning that was at 11 Outrider, Mr. Ben Hung. He he was at the field trip meeting this morning, and he did express some concerns regarding the landscaping and the property line, because I guess part of the existing property line is on his property, so there's kind of a discrepancy there. And then I know Commissioner Vice Chair Kirkpatrick this morning expressed his concerns about the pool equipment encroaching into the 5-foot clearance around the structure. I did reach out to the Fire Prevention Plan Check Division by phone and email, and I haven't heard anything back from them yet. So, and I just reached out to them today, so hopefully I'll hear something back from them. This project, once again, is categorically exempt in CEQA. Section 15303, Class 3, new construction of a single-family residence. Well, not the residence, accessory structures. It's for accessory structures. So our recommendation is to open the public hearing, take public testimony, close the public hearing, discuss the project, and then there is a resolution that is part of the packet if the Planning Commission decides to approve the project. So that concludes my presentation, and if there's any questions. Thank you.
Questions?
We did notice that the next door neighbor was there.
Yes.
And didn't have a problem.
Yeah, he was there.
Kind of noticed they watered his trees for him, so that was nice. On the question of the pool equipment, so we can make the resolution, but if we approve it as is, it would still have to, it's probably not worth pointing out because it would have to approve, they would have to approve it anyway.
Right.
In terms of access.
Correct.
Because it's in the setback, does that involve the association approving access? Or anything there? Or is it only easements, not a setback?
There's no easements on both sides over
So they
there.
wouldn't have any
Yeah.
purview of this?
Yeah. But they still need to approve the project anyways, because anything that we approve, they have to approve too. The association,
Okay.
yeah.
But
So
they-
pool
but the-
equipment, anything, they review everything that we review, the pergola, the pool equipment.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone from the public?
Greg Sunstein, I'm a resident, 9 Outrider Road. It's really nothing that we didn't go over at the walkthrough today, or she hasn't discussed, but the resident, Ben, that came over, his main concern, I think, was, I don't think it was so much the property lines, it was the location of the pool closet and the possible noise from the pool closet, but I think after the contractor explained, like, how it's constructed, the noise level of the equipment, and that it would be barricaded, you know, he assured me he'd be fine with that, and that was his, and of course, he also happily discovered that his lot was bigger than anticipated. Other than that, as she mentioned, like, we moved the pool over slightly from the original plan because there were a couple concerns, like, one is cost. The pool just being like right there in the middle of the lawn brings it really close to that slope, and there's a really good possibility that, you know, that would require the need for more intense engineering, such as caissons. You know, not that that's out of the question, but just aesthetically, it also just looks better if it's lined up with the existing patio concrete. So when we move it over, it lines up perfectly, and it's not like right smack in the middle of the lawn, so you kind of preserve some lawn space on the left side. And then I guess, yeah, I guess that was my only comments for the commission.
Okay. Any questions?
No, no questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? All right, close the public part. What do you guys think?
I think that it's a fine plan, and I do agree moving the pool into the side setback makes it look more symmetrical and works better, so. And subject to the fire department making their decision on the equipment location, I'm fine with it.
I agree with everything. Yeah, it looks much better.
I'll be honest, I had a problem when you get into the easement with the pool, but then with the neighbor there, that kind of,
Right.
that was the
Yeah.
issue. It would be more his issue than anybody else's. And so, but I do think it lines up better and provides actually more grass on the left for the kids, so it's just makes more sense, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that, shall I take a
Go
stab
for it.
at it? All right. Zoning case number 24-017, I move we approve the resolution as written.
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Cooley,
Approve.
Commissioner Douglas,
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. All right, any old business?
None?
None? Any new business? Scheduled field trips. I guess, what does that mean relative to July? Are we gonna skip right to August?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's that date? August 20th?
Yeah, so I do have a little bit of under items from staff. I can
Okay.
talk about that a little bit.
Please.
Yeah, so our next meeting is supposed to be on July 16th. However, we have some conflicts there with scheduling. So we're proposing that July 16th meeting be, we go dark in July. Our next scheduled meeting is for August 20th. We've already had indicated that 2 members will not be available for the August 20th meeting. So, the commission can discuss maybe having another meeting, maybe the week after. Chair Shelf did mention he is available after August 22nd, which is, I guess, a Thursday. He's coming back in. So possibly the week after, August 22nd, if you'd like to reschedule a meeting. Our suggestion is maybe consider Tuesday, August 27th, or another day that week for being the next meeting. The other item on there is really the remaining items or meetings for the Planning Commission. His next one being September 17th. If there are any other meetings that you think are going to be conflicting on your schedule, let us know. I know that other cities, they often go dark in December because of holidays, so we may have to consider either going dark on December 17th or rescheduling that to another meeting date that's more appropriate. Just something to think about.
You guys know, are you around
I'm good.
27th?
For August?
August?
I am. That would be better for me.
Unless I take off to Fiji or something last minute.
Okay. But also, we don't have any field trips scheduled either?
Not at this point. No.
Okay, because that could impact the August meeting too, in the morning, and/or any projects. Do we have anything outstanding that we're gonna readdress that we know that is anybody coming back? I don't think we have anything outstanding, do we?
We're working on a couple projects that we expect to bring back to the Planning Commission. I don't know if they're going to be ready in August.
Okay.
But there are a couple things that are still kind of like, they went to you, they've gone back, the applicants are still working on, revising the projects. And
But without July, we may end up getting a couple projects that we need to address in August, so we don't wanna wait 3 months.
We have 12
Right.
upper Blackwater Canyon, and then we had 42
Right.
Portuguese Bend Road.
yeah, so you got a tennis court at 12 Upper Blackwater, and then the new house that they want to redo on 42 Portuguese Bend Road.
Okay,
Are we moving the meeting in August to the 27th, or are you, what?
I think you're gonna check in with
We'll
Brad and
check and
everybody
let
and
us
double check
know.
it.
Yeah, and he did mention that he is available after August 22nd, but then again, I guess we can also, if we have a special meeting and move the date, we can do that.
How much notice do we need to give for that special meeting?
That's 72 hours.
72 hours.
Oh, that's it? Oh, okay, not 30
Yeah.
days or something. Okay, good.
No, as a special meeting, it's a shorter notice period when it's necessary, so.
Okay.
yeah.
So we can choose whether or not, okay, great.
So you'll advise?
Yeah, we
Okay,
still
I'll
have
just
time.
keep it on the 20th for now, and then you can let me know.
Okay. Any other items from Planning Commission? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.